As Americans, we pride ourselves on free speech, but a new wave of censorship is creeping into our digital lives. From laws like the Kids Online Safety Act, to the surprising role of financial giants like Visa and MasterCard, and even the growing power of big tech's content moderation. These mechanisms threaten to control what we say, create, and consume online. In this video essay, we'll explore how these systems, often sold as protecting us, can be weaponized to silence voices and push us towards the dystopian societies we read about in books, like 1984. Let's dive into 3 key areas of censorship in the US and why they matter. Kids Online Safety Act, or KOSA, is a bipartisan US bill aimed at protecting kids online. It requires platforms to verify ages, filter harmful content, and give parents tools to monitor their kids' activity. Sounds great, right? But in the US, where free speech is a cornerstone, KOSA's vague language raises red flags. What counts as harmful? Who decides? KOSA puts platforms like YouTube, TikTok, and X under pressure to over-censor to avoid lawsuits or fines. In the US, where political polarization is intense, harmful could mean anything, from discussions about gun rights to reproductive health or even protest movements. For example, posts about Palestine or anything else they vaguely/loosely deem not safe for kids could be flagged as divisive or harmful by regulators or advocacy groups. The bill's enforcement through the Federal Trade Commission gives unelected bureaucrats power to interpret harm, risking partisan abuse. This echoes 1984, where the government controls truth to maintain order. KOSA could turn platforms into proxies for state censorship. Chilling free speech across the US, creators might self-censor to avoid legal trouble, meaning your favorite YouTuber might dodge hot-button issues, or indie game developers might scrap projects that touch on sensitive topics. Imagine a US where every tweet or video is scrutinized for compliance, a digital panopticon that stifles the open discourse we cherish. Visa and MasterCard, 2 US-based financial giants, have become unexpected players in the censorship game. With the near monopoly on payment processing, they've started dictating what content is allowed on platforms Americans use every day, from Steam to Patreon. In 2025, Visa and MasterCard pressured platforms like Steam and itch.io to remove adult-themed games, after campaigns by US-based advocacy groups like the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. These games, often legal and clearly labeled for adults, were targeted for depicting themes like fantasy or taboo topics. The threat? Lose payment processing and go bankrupt. This isn't hypothetical. Patreon faced similar pressure in 2024, forcing creators to alter or remove content to comply. In the US, where platforms like OnlyFans and X rely on these processors, the power to cut off funding gives Visa and MasterCard unchecked control over free expression. A 2025 petition with over 150,000 signatures called this financial censorship, highlighting how Americans are losing access to legal content. The hypocrisy stings. These companies have been slower to act against platforms hosting illegal material, yet they're quick to target niche creators. Visa and MasterCard, backed by Wall Street giants like Vanguard, act as unelected censors, deciding what's acceptable for Americans to buy or create. If they can block a game or a crowdfunding campaign, what's stopping them from targeting political speech like pro-gun or pro-choice content? This financial stranglehold risks a dystopia where free expression depends on corporate approval, not the First Amendment. In the US, big tech companies like Meta, Google, and X have become de facto gatekeepers of speech through content moderation. While KOSA and payment processors are newer players, tech giants have been quietly shaping what Americans see online for years, often under pressure from advertisers, activists, or government officials. Content moderation in the US is a black box. In 2024, X faced scrutiny for allegedly shadow banning conservative voices, while YouTube was criticized for demonetizing videos on topics like climate skepticism or COVID-19 policies. These decisions aren't random, they're driven by algorithms and human moderators influenced by US cultural and political pressures. For example, in 2023, Meta removed posts about US protests over abortion rights, citing community standards, only to reinstate them after backlash. The vagueness of these standards lets platforms suppress content without accountability, especially when advertisers threaten to pull funding or politicians hint at regulation. This isn't just about removing bad content, it's about controlling narratives. During the 2024 election cycle, reports surfaced of Google downranking search results for certain candidates' websites, raising fears of electoral interference. When platforms can amplify or silence voices at will, they wield power that rival any government agency, all without the checks and balance of a democracy. This mirrors Fahrenheit 451, where books are burned to control ideas. Big tech's moderation creates a sanitized internet where only approved narratives survive. Imagine a US where your ability to share a political opinion or access a controversial video depends on an algorithm's whim. This isn't just a censorship, it's the erosion of the public square, pushing us towards a dystopia where a handful of tech executives decide what 330 million Americans can say or hear. Censorship in the US, whether through COSA, Visa and MasterCard, or big tech's moderation, is a growing threat to our freedoms. These systems, sold as protecting kids or maintaining standards, can be weaponized to silence dissent, crush creativity, and control narratives. In dystopian stories, oppression starts with small steps, banning certain speech, restricting certain access, and monitoring behavior. We're seeing those steps now in America. To fight back, we need transparency in content moderation, protections against financial censorship, and laws that prioritize free speech over vague safety concerns. Support bills like the Fair Access to Banking Act, use decentralized platforms, and demand accountability from big tech. The US was built on free expression. Let's keep it that way before we slide into a dystopia where our voices are silenced.